2 down, 2 more to go. We've got SPT versus SOA coming up right at you, and after that, we're gonna find out who comes out on top between BTG and RPG. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to HGC China. And Tetra, man, I want more in the Nexus to be another multi-class hero. Can you believe it? Like assassin and healer. I want that right now. I mean, she's got it in her kit, right? You can do that in Overwatch too. I mean,
yeah, but
I want to hear more excitement. Come on.
I mean, why don't you just have her as a support that does damage, like Tyrande and Karazim? I'm not sure if we need multi-class for that, seeing as that would require picking the heroic as to whether it does healing or damage. Is probably what that would mean.
I'll give you one more chance to not make me look like a fool on stream. Anduin, Shadow Priest, Normal Priest, healer, support.
I'm fine with that.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. That's a good way to do a multi-class.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. Down with it.
Thank you.
Or as the Alarak of the Storm comic, tank support.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out what the Chinese experts have to say. And look at Yaya there in the bottom right saying it's going to be a draw. She is not fully trusting the SPT hype.
Quelle surprise, Yaya. Going for the very brave call there. But SOA have been repeatedly surprising us. And these two teams have already played each other. And in that time, it was a 1-1. So Yaya trusting the statistics a little here.
Yeah, and I like it because SOA is no slouch to beat. But, you know, SPT, they're a pretty hard mountain to climb there as well. With Zhen Zhao, legendary ranged assassin player, Melody C finally back where he belongs, in my opinion, with those strong secondary off-flex supports. But Misaka, legendary Muradin player, strong tank, probably the strongest tank in the league, and also mastermind in the draft and shot coloring game.
Yeah, he is so strong in pretty much every scenario. You saw Stitches the off-stream game. We did not see that game. I was about to say. There was a Stitches and Sylvanas in that one. I'm pretty sure that was in the first day, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, definitely true. And I like how Soap here is breaking the synergy. Not wearing the stylish SPT jacket? How could you?
I know, right? What's he wearing? Is that
it's the HGC
one?
Yeah, it's the HGC college jacket. Looking good too. Don't want to take anything away from the HGC swag, but man, if I could have one of those SPT leather jackets, whew, I would be the cool cat in town.
Is that what you'd do if you had a team? Your like uniforms would just be like leather jackets.
Oh, absolutely.
Sunglasses.
Leather all day, every day. Sunglasses. Yep.
I like it. I like it. As we see SOA here, a little bit of variation in their team, very strong. But the one you really need to keep an eye on here, I would say, is Molly. But let's see who they prioritize. They say Faye.
That's a fair call.
You can't blame them for picking Faye. One of the most dominant flex players. Like, we talk a lot about, wow, that's a great assassin. Wow, that's an amazing tank. Faye is, if you leave him alone, he's going to ruin your day.
He could probably squash all of us in real life because he's a big man, like literally a big man. And he could definitely beat us in Heroes of the Storm, that's for sure. Because he is so good at the game, not just mechanically, but also in terms of how many heroes he plays well at the same time. Probably one of the largest hero pools in the entire league. So Faye, definitely a man to be on the lookout for. We see him on the bottom right there next to Uncle G, who used to be the key player in the last week. So it's cool to see how production changes it up in a Justice.
Yeah. And they're changing the clips. As we saw earlier, there were a couple clips from even the off-stream games. So very cool to see that. So liking it a lot.
Here we go. Now, stats. Let's compare them from top to bottom. KDA, kills on average per game, deaths on average per game, assists on average per game, and last but not least, we have experience soaked on average per game. So SOA, not really being on par with SPT, but we can't really blame them. SPT still remains the big powerhouse in the league.
I mean, they're keeping up in XP. Only a single, only 1,000 behind there, and you can see previous results. SOA managing to pull out draws against everyone except the one, whereas SPT, they were able to beat the one very recently, but did pull out the 1-1 versus Timeflow in that off-stream game, losing on Volskaya.
Yeah, definitely true, and I think SOA, they could do it once. Why couldn't they do it twice? They could take a map of SPT at any given day. That's how much this lineup has grown, and that's how well they've shown up to this point. But we see a familiar opening by SPT Tetra taking us to Dragonshire.
5 wins, 0 a very clear message to anyone who doesn't ban Dragonshire versus SPT. Unfortunately, it's a very similar record to their Battlefield of Eternity, and each team only gets one map ban.
Exactly. There's only so much you can do to ban out maps against SPT, and I think since Dragonshire is the less snowbally one between, you know, Dragonshire and Battlefield of Eternity, you'd rather go for that one, which allows you to come back in the later stages of the game. Because, let's face it, if you're behind on Battlefield of Eternity and the team gets a strong Immortal, the game is probably over. Whereas on Dragonshire, you can make a comeback happen at any given time.
Very true. It only takes one nice sneaky play or a big old push from mercenaries in the bot lane to be able to make that kind of game-changing play on this map. As we see, the first Uther ban, I think we've seen all tournament. In first ban, we've seen second bans.
And I was already starting to wonder when we would see a first ban Uther, because so many teams in China seem to value the Paladin. And, you know, as a result, if you're first pick and you're Soa, you can also just basically take the risk, because your opponents are probably going to ban Genji anyways, or Hanzo, and then you take the remaining Japanese, and there we go.
I'm going to flail for a bit here, because Hanzo
Can you do it again?
Pure confusion, because Hanzo first picked, what's the best counter to Hanzo? The burst combo of Leap or Judgment and Hinterland Blast is the go-to one that all the Chinese teams are using. What's the way to deal with that? Uther, but you banned it yourself! So what are you doing? I don't understand. I'm very interested to see how they adjust to this.
And the thing is, you just saw CE coming out swinging on Towers of Doom with Tyrael and Sonya. So in order to prevent that from happening to your Hanzo, I think you're forced to either ban Tyrael second or pick it right now, because otherwise SPT is definitely going to snatch it.
Yeah, no, I agree. You got to take Tyrael, but Tyrael's not the best reactionary hero. Neither is Rhaegar here, because if Leap Hinterlands is landed, Ancestral you just need to hope that it doesn't one-shot the Hanzo.
You need to preemptively cast it on a full HP hero, and that's insane.
Yeah. Which is why it's Which is why this combo that SPT are doing is better with Sonya than it is with Tyrael, because Tyrael gives a significant amount more warning. Where obviously you get that big gold circle around the target of the Judgment, whereas Sonya, you get a short shout and then your hero's dead.
Exactly. So the Cassia seems to be a hero that SPT does not really want to face, and I think it's fair to actually ban Cassia away. I mean, she could still be the one that blinds a Sonya, the one that blinds an auto attack Falstead, so she's very uncomfortable to play against in general. So I mean, speaking of uncomfortable to play against, Jada's definitely one of those heroes too.
Ooh, very true. Would be a solid ban by SPT due to the fact that it would be another really good burst damage dealer for Soa, but one who could potentially get Ice Block. But they decide against it. They decide to ban out the Cassia instead, due to the fact that both the heroes they currently have reasonable attack-based damage.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be a clean Tyrael ban right now for Soa. I can't see them survive against Judgment, Leap, Falstead, Hinterlands Blast, or even a Gust if you Gust Hanzo into the enemy team. So,
are we sure that SPT would go for the Judgment?
I'm not sure, man.
I prefer this, honestly. I prefer the removal of extra burst. Tyrael, I think CE went for that because they were desperate. Not desperate, but they were very much committed to an all-in strategy from the start. This is just SPT playing normally and picking what is the counter to Hanzo.
I think you actually raise a solid point there, because CE was playing a relatively easy composition to execute, right? To basically find their comfort zone again, because
we hit our R buttons.
Exactly, and you time it with a nice interval in between, and then you're going to kill somebody almost guaranteed. But you're definitely right. SPT seems to be you know, carrying a lot of momentum, and they seem to be doing much better in those team fights, and the coordination seems to be much more spot on. So maybe they don't have to go Tyrael. Maybe they can go for something like ETC. No, that's actually picked away. But maybe they can go for something like Stitches even, or the Muradin, to really make it a little bit hard to execute, but so much more rewarding too.
Well, I quite like the idea of the Stitches.
Yeah, I like it, to be honest.
Especially if they went Gorge Stitches, because they could, in theory, if they don't want to go for the Hinterland, they could go Gust. Which means they had the combo, and of course, the classic speed boost Stitches back into your base with whoever you've gorged.
No, definitely true. And speaking of supports Lucio and such. I think ZZH is a player, the support player by SPT, is going to be a hero or a player to be on the lookout for, because boy has he impressed. We called him the weak link last phase, where everybody was performing, only ZZH had an occasional slip up, but he's basically one of the rocks and pillars to fall back on for his teammates.
Yes, he is. He looks really good this season so far. We'll have to keep an eye on all of the players once again to see if they keep doing this, because this is the thing. With new metas, new players have the chance to shine. In the last meta, double support, it was quite hard to shine out as a support because there was another one to fall back on. It was very much about the hyper carries a lot of the time.
And speaking of double support, Tetcher, you jinxed it, because there is Tassadar. And
I mean, what?
No, we've
auto attack Hanzo.
I think we could see that, and we have to highlight this team composition because it has been played a lot in NA, and yesterday, or on the entire weekend actually, we saw a couple of European teams try to mimic this playstyle with Tassadar, Hanzo, double frontline, and it's one of those rare instances. I don't want to disrespect NA by any means, but it's one of those rare occasions where NA really seems to be the global trendsetters with this, because it has been performing quite well in the region.
Fair enough. They do actually have the potential for one of my favorite useless combos, aka the cookie jar. Put someone in the entomb and then drop a force wall on the entrance. All
right, so lots of protection against the Jaina burst now with the Tassadar, with the addition, and once again we have to highlight Kala's Light, providing 15 armor against the Jaina burst, which is probably going to pop those shields relatively fast. You still get the armor value, which is huge.
So, Muradin as the final pick for Super Perfect Team, and that means we get the joy of a Misaka Muradin.
And the cool thing is... Yeah, go ahead.
Yorick is an interesting factor here. So Leo will have to... Leo's going to have a very fun game, assuming he doesn't get detonated.
And it's so cool to see the styles clash. The styles collide here, basically. A new... kid on the block composition basically by SPT, duking it out against a very old school double support, however with a twist, with that Hanzo replacing the traditional hyper carry. So we don't see a Vala, we don't see a Zul'jin or Greymane, we see the Hanzo.
Indeed we do. And Hanzo, just in general, HGC I believe currently has a 61% win rate, but in China only sitting at about 55. He has had issues. In fact, a lot of people are figuring out how to deal with him.
Yeah. And I think we're just basically scratching on the tip of the iceberg here on how people play the Hanzo, on how people are playing against the Hanzo, more importantly. We've seen a couple of recipes being applied, most importantly, the burst composition here in China.
Something very important to say, actually. After a very quick stats check, Soa are currently undefeated with Hanzo.
Here we go.
So let's see if we can get that spree going as we are heading into game number 1. And Kendrick, who's this team on the left here?
Well, on the left-hand side, we've got the top dogs in HGC China right now, SPT, the super perfect team. Zhang Zhao is playing on Jaina. We've got Melody C on the Falstad, Misaka on his baby boy Muradin, Soap is using Sonya, and ZZH on Lucio.
Whereas on the right, it is start over again with Faye on the Auric, Uncle G on Rhaegar, TY on the Hanzo, Klong is on ETC, and Molly is playing on the Tassadar.
Yeah, and already we can see the standard builds coming in for Hanzo, going relatively auto-attack heavy, and the Sign Fusion for Tassadar. So no auto-attack builds coming in for Tassadar. Used to be the go-to choice for a long period of time, but of course the wave clear, the utility you have with Sign Fusion is just the best choice right now in most cases.
I have just learned that the money pig is adjusted per region. Let me see a stun onto ETC there, has to power slide in. But if we get to see Tassadar on his mount, you can see it does not have the $ on the back of it, as it in fact has the Chinese currency, which I believe is yen sign.
Yeah. Yen is Japanese, and I think yuan is Chinese. But
yuan, there we go.
Don't quote me on that. There we go.
Yeah, we don't live there. We don't know. But yeah, I did not know that was a thing. Nice little touches that we get in here as a...
You know, if there's one thing we can say about Blizzard games, it's definitely the fact that they love the detail. And they put so much detail in all those things. Beautifully done.
It's a labor of love from a company full of it. Love, that is. As we do see Uncle G working on the mercenary camp. Rhaegar takes him a little longer than it used to. Hanzo's going to help him out here.
Ah, rest in peace, Lightning Bonds. Sorely missed. At least as a Rhaegar main myself.
What's your most missed from mine's cast aside?
My most missed talent is definitely the old Warbringer that would stun people.
Oh yeah,
because that was good on Varian.
Of course, it's a Varian talent that you missed.
Of course, man.
One that was considered broken.
And can you imagine? Can you imagine what the old Varian would have done to Hanzo players? I'm pretty sure chat is right behind me right now, supporting me in my claim to bring back the old stun Warbringer.
That's an excellent point, as we see Faye getting worked down a little bit, but he's in a pretty safe position. He's not going to get killed, but he might take some damage on his lane.
Here we go. So it's basically a show-off here between two Siege Giant camps, and oh my god, that was a beautiful scattering arrow, hitting Melody C hard.
Indeed, and this is a lane we have seen multiple times. Hanzo versus Falstad, even just those two. Yep. Hanzo wins this lane, but yet it keeps happening in HGC China.
It's basically almost like a mirrored lane here. Top lane is getting heavily demolished by SPT, whereas the bottom lane is suffering because Soa is applying a lot of pressure. Klong going in, doesn't really expose himself to too much, and with the flight by Melody C and the reinforcements with CCH and Misaka, they actually managed to hold all the towers and keep them in good shape.
But the fact that they were unable to recapture due to the rotation of Soa is still pretty bad news for them. They are still on the defensive.
So let's check out some of the talents here. No big surprises. We see auto attack Falstad once again with the seasoned marksman. We see Colorless Light as we announced during the drafting, which is super awesome because the way you want to do it, guys, once you have a lot of burst damage on the enemy team and your shields are going to likely get destroyed very, very quickly, you need to get at least some value out of it. Whereas the additional life leash wouldn't really make that much sense. You also don't have fast attackers in your team anyways. So yeah, that's a cool way to adjust Tassadar depending on what the enemy team feels.
We see the explosive arrow coming in for Hanzo here as well. A bit of extra wave clear for him, and even more poke against this Falstad, who's just having such a rough lane. You look at that mini-map, thank you, Observer, apparently. Good timing. Yeah, issues are being had down here.
And level 7 is only about to arrive for Soa, so if they struggle against that Hanzo in the lane already, things are only going to get worse now. Quinch out. And it always surprises me how much harder the structures are hitting right now. Like, you can't really underestimate the damage provided by forts and keeps, most importantly, because you saw the damage on Zhenjiao and the Jaina had to almost retreat immediately.
Sneaky bruiser camp being taken, but that Hanzo arrow will reveal this.
Armor minus.
Very risky move. In comes the stun.
Wow.
And a lovely feral lunge coming in. And Soa, that's actually first blood as they move back onto the point and force Misaka off.
Doesn't seem to be a good day for Falstad players here. Once again struggling, and look at all the momentum built by Soa. Hanzo providing so much pressure, keeping everybody occupied in the bottom lane, and that means top shrine is free, middle lane is free, and I'm not sure how much Soap can do to stall this out.
He's going to have to put on quite the show if he wants to. Luckily, SPT, they do have more people coming in. Misaka has arrived in the mid lane, and as such, that will be the best denial.
Hanzo down.
Another finally, Hanzo being taken down. Rip a couple redemption stacks, probably.
Yeah.
And SPT, they're finally going to be able to get control back at that bottom shrine, so Misaka can rotate again if he wishes, and Zhenjiao should really port. No, it looks like he's going to fountain instead.
Yeah, and there's a couple of heroes on which you really don't want to die, and one of them is Hanzo.
Wow.
There would be Kel'Thas with convection stacks, Medivh with the Master's Touch, but losing redemption stacks is so annoying because the longer the game goes, the more chaotic teamfights are going to become, and the harder it's going to be for you to restack. So TY definitely needs to be a little bit more careful. Armor reduction, by the way, applying to map objectives that count as heroic units as well, like the Dragon Knight.
And the Dragon Knight going to be able to drop some serious damage, but like I said, that defense that Hanzo adds with that armor reduction is going to give them a much better time. Nice Wraith Walk there, so Faye does not get kicked by the Dragon Knight.
Yeah. And that's actually cool because piloted objectives like the Dragon Knight can actually help Hanzo regain the stacks very easily because, as I said, those count as heroes, so once you have Dragon Knight there or Protector, you can really, really attack it all the time and get your stacks back. So that's kind of nice for Soa, but what's not really so nice for Soa is that they're now going to have to defend other lanes and leave the Dragon Knight unattended, and I think that top fort is going to fall eventually.
HGC, as heroics are hit, there's the Dragon Arrow, slow from Leo, beautiful gust, but The Storm dropping so much damage. Dive for the snipe, and Club picks up the kill. But Faye won't drop. Beautiful Ancestral from Uncle G.
You know what? In that situation, Tetra, I think an Entomb could have done so much. I think an Entomb could have caught the Jaina more quickly. Entomb could have really helped in general to allow them to catch up after an arrow. So I wonder how much value the March of the Black King is going to unfold throughout the game. Because up to this point, I normally like Leoric games more these days. Or I like the performance of a Leoric more these days who's going for nice Entombs.
Very true. I mean, the only argument I would argue against Entomb is Falstad and Muradin can escape it. Sonya can escape it with Mystical Spear, but you really only want to be using it on Jaina, so I can see your logic. And
or Lucio.
I guess it can give... Lucio can probably wall ride out of it, and you actually will just give him more armor if he goes for that talent.
That is actually true. That is actually true.
Here, Lucio, have some armor mid-fight thanks to this wall I have provided you, as they going to be forced to Wraithwalk away.
Yeah, the Wraithwalk is good. The damage by Jaina was ambitious, but it wasn't enough to keep Faye under control now. The healing totem, there's so much value. I like the positioning of it. By the way, full stacks on Hanzo too. We just saw the orange glow.
Nice.
But yeah, when it comes to playing Rehgar and using healing totem efficiently, you have to consider two things. First one, how much AoE damage does the enemy team have, and how likely is my healing totem going to get destroyed? In the meantime, though, Leoric ends up living.
This Leoric, this is why we like Faye.
Oh
so March the Black King, turning it round. They're gonna get Jen Zhao as well. This is why Faye gets called out. Stuff like this, able to survive where most people should have died and still manage to turn around with no health and pick up the kill.
And this is why commentators shouldn't question pro players sometimes, because man, was that March of the Black King value. Nobody's missing the Entomb in those kinds of moments. 2 kills go in for Soa, and that is going to give them a lot of momentum and a lot of map dominance as a result, because that bottom keep can be huge when it comes to pushing in the bottom.
You are absolutely right, but the issue with this is they don't have anyone in top lane. They're sending HGC up there at the moment, but it's going to take them a little bit to get him up.
Okay, what is Soa up to now? Both teams dead even in experience. 13-13. We see the Ominous Wraith now for Faye. That's actually one of the big power spikes for Leoric in the mid-late game. So he can now, especially on Jaina, dude. If you land the Wraithwalk on the Jaina while she's trying to go for Icy Vein combos, whew, you're going to make Jen Zhao's day a living hell.
Nice deny by Molly there. Very interesting as well. I don't know if we... Oh, let me see, it's fine. I don't know if we actually mentioned it properly. The fact that Molly, the usual, like, main ranged assassin player, is actually the one on the Tassadar.
Yeah, definitely true. So, really quite the new role for him. But look at the level 13 for Tassadar as well. Nullification. We have even more damage reduction. So, the moment Tassadar gets close to Jaina, he's definitely going to use it on her. Hanzo escapes thanks to the archery.
Yep, leaping over the wall directly onto his sci-fi surfboard. Beginning to drop damage onto Soap Gust, having to be used to keep Soap going.
Big
there.
hit!
Nice arrow, and down he goes. Molly picks up the kill, and Faye again survives. What is this?
Hanzo with the early play of the game right there. That was a beautiful Dragon's Arrow hitting in perfect synchrony there with the stage dive follow-up and the Archon as well. Perfectly done by Soa, and this is why Soa is a serious contender to make the 3rd seed their own and maybe even represent China at those tournaments. Molly trying to dodge. He's being reinforced by Fei Yi as well. I think he can definitely hold it. No force spell though, so he can't lock him in here unfortunately. But that should be a Dragonite for Soa.
It should be. There's no one to interrupt, but currently there's no one to cap. And Jaina could have tried to go bot if she knew where everyone was, but she didn't. They're delaying. They're going to let Molly take it, which they're still getting no one's even close to denying.
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't close. Still a good try by Melody C there. And I really like the patience by Soa as well, waiting until Tassadar arrives because he's probably the least valuable target during a team fight. So you let that hero take the control over the Dragon Knight so you won't lose too much team fighting power. And now the forwards are probably going to get tackled here relatively shortly. 4 members in the bottom. ETC taking... Oh, 3 members, excuse me. ETC taking care of Falset and Dragon Knight pressuring the middle.
Jaina is stacked. She now has access to Ice Block, which is
huge
against this kind of comp. Like you said, it's huge. That is a really big deal. Machine gun build is very effective, but it does require you to be chasing a lot. Here comes Falstad.
Wow.
Oh, the jump to try and dodge the Falstad, but Melody C, you gets it anyway. There's the sound barrier, and SPT, this is their fight. They've been struggling all game, but that was destructive strength.
Yeah, that was a naughty flank by Melody C here, making all his earlier missteps to be forgotten, basically, because that gust, although it was perfectly cleansed by Uncle G, was still so good, and his positioning was so strong that he could finish off Hanzo with his own hands, and of course, a little bit of help on his Griffin.
So we see Tassadar moving up to the top lane to grab Mercenaries, while Leoric once again survives. This is like the rule usually is, no one on your team should ever die if you play well, etc. That's the dream. Don't let anyone die. But if someone's gonna die, the priority goes Murky, Misha, Leoric.
Hey, okay, Misha is not supposed to die. She's supposed to live a happy life next to a Master Rexar. We don't want to get into trouble with any animal rights companies here.
Very true. And missed Vikings there, but I honestly forgot they were in the game for a second there due to how little we see them. But the fact is, Leoric, he is a lot of the times the sacrificial lamb, and yet Faye, I don't even think he's died this game.
Yeah, actually true. Very little trade values. If there's anything we can hold against Faye, it's definitely that. However, he plays a really solid game, as you said. The March of the Black Kings were amazing. We saw some good Wraith Walks coming in as well. And all of a sudden, SPT is back in the game with a strong rotation, with strong flanking there. And flanking and hitting people from behind by surprise is definitely what you need to do when you play against the Hanzo. And Melody C on that false set basically just delivered.
So we see the mercenary camp being captured. And look at this, Misaka.
They know.
Gets scouted thanks to that scatter arrow, and now thanks to the vision arrow, immediate retreat. Too much danger around here. ETC stays down again. They're going to try and turn it around. Faye trying to chase, but everyone's already disengaged, and Faye looks like he will finally fall.
Okay, finally some trade value, but it also means that Seasoned Marksman is now fully stacked for Falstad. He's going to hit even harder on his basic attacks, and I gotta say, the utility of the Water Elemental is just huge, providing so much zoning and so much pesky slowing as well. Now, all that's left to do for Soa is to march towards the top lane, maybe capture the the shrine, excuse me, and stall it out a little bit longer until Leoric is back, and he revives faster than anyone else anyways.
Exactly, and they're not even capping it. They're wrapping around, because why cap when you can cap and kill?
And nice map awareness by Soap there as well. He didn't cross paths with Soa, who were already lurking in the shadows. Now Faye,
Now that's the joy of Roll Focus, because he arrived via Wraith Walk and tried to leave, but there's just too many people. March of the Black King directly into a wall, but it's bought him some time. Wraith Walk, full retreat, gets a little bit more healing from his Q, and so close to making it out yet again.
Yeah, perfect value and perfect synergy between the two Wraithwalk talents here, as you pointed out. The moment you hit 2 or more enemy heroes with 1 skeletal swing, you're going to have a drastic cooldown reduction on your next Wraithwalk, and that allowed Faye to live as long as he could, but in the end, it still wasn't enough. And now, all of a sudden, Soa, they really need to pay attention that they don't drop the ball too hard, because it's starting to get a little bit out of hand here. 1 entire level now separates themselves in SPT.
LDC pulling back away from Faye, who is going to put himself directly in the fight. Stave dive immediately dropped, but the nice Storm Bolt prevents any kind of follow-up.
Yeah, that was good timing there as well by SPT, but Klong, he really tried to force a fight before 20. However, SPT is just too experienced and too safe as a team to really fall for it.
Mercenaries once again being picked up. The difference is SPT one is that Bruiser camp, and it's in the lane that they currently control, so that will be able to put some pressure on, and that will probably pressure a keep unless someone reacts.
Yeah, very true. False set now, definitely a serious threat that Soa can't ignore. Basically, all that SPT needs to do right now is they need to play cat and mouse with their opponents. They need to kite them a little bit more and let Falstad soak the 20, only for him to arrive in the back and maybe land a good gust. This could be it.
Dragon Arrow misses. LDC moving in. They're trying to focus onto Klong. No gust required here as they are able to take it down.
Exactly. Movement speed coming in from Lucio, allowing everybody to chase much more efficiently here. The Dimensional Shift is good.
Dimensional Shift is good. ZZH tries to boot, but he's just at the wrong angle. March of the Black King once again. This time only a delay tactic, but it delays enough as we see them try to turn around onto Soap, but the gust disengage gets everyone except for Faye, but Faye can't chase any further.
Molly, pay attention to the Jaina. No, he didn't have another storm. He used them all in the middle to clear the minions. He didn't see Jaina, who was already patiently giggling and channeling on that Dragon Knight. And now this is bad news for Soa. ET is still dead for another 20 seconds. SPT, they need to regroup. They need to gather. But when they do, they're going to have the might of the Dragon Knight. They're going to have Storm Talons as well. And 5 members to push that bottom lane.
As they move in, Falstad the furthest away, but he is close enough to join in with this push. As Soa begin working on that keep. The keep will certainly fall. The question is, can they do more? As SPT beginning to get the value. Here's the Ominous Wraith getting a little bit of damage reduction. Hanzo goes for a ride via Air Dragon Knight as they move in. But looks like they're going to attempt the core.
40%, 30% left on the Dragon Knight. The core is taking damage, but is it going to be enough? Soa is fighting. Soa is fighting hard. Leoric trying to minimize the damage being done here. Big stage dive coming in from Claw.
The core going down, 62%. Dragon Arrows used me suckers in Avatar form. Health bars are not even close to going down. And SPT pick up game number 1.
And all it took was one nice flank by Melody C there. Actually, he had a couple of nice flanks, but Melody C, in my opinion, made all the difference there. Beautiful damage coming in. Even when the Mighty Gust was denied and cleansed, he still delivered the auto attacks that were needed to take down a target relatively quickly. And even without the major lockdown on Hanzo, he never really seemed like a true threat, did he?
No, I would agree. He did a little bit of damage. There's one really good Dragon Arrow that we can definitely call out, but overall,
yeah,
the Hanzo underpowered buff, please, is what we can take away from this, and that's how you get that's how you get voted off stream by chat. But yeah, no, he didn't feel as impactful as I'm sure Soa were hoping he would be. The early game did pretty well, but SPT just got more control in the late game. They were able to find picks, whereas Soa seems to be a little bit more scattered.
One thing we do have to highlight, though, is that Soa did have their moments of glory. Especially that Dragon's Era combo with the stage dive that you mentioned looked really, really good. Faye on that Leoric, I think, was probably one of the better and more impressive Leoric performances that we've seen. He definitely showed up big time, especially with those March of the Black Kings, which netted him good value on average. But SPT, at some point, it seemed like they really just used all of their class and experience to make those split-on decision-making with the good flanks, with the target prioritization there as well, especially by Melody C. I gotta give him my personal MVP vote. I think he made all the difference with those false set plays. Not just in terms of how he executed people in team fights, but also how much pressure he continuously applied in that top lane, excuse me.
I would agree. He was dominant in the fights and dominant in lane, except in the 1v1 versus Hanzo, but they knew that was going to happen. That's why the lanes actually started rotating a significant amount earlier than they normally would. Yeah. But this does tell a story. 6 kills to 6. Soa were looking really good for a lot of that game.
Exactly, and it was definitely a rather close game. Zhenzhou gets another MVP vote, though. No love for the false set, but we gotta mention his Jaina there as well. Water Elemental, in my opinion, and the right micromanagement to control it effectively also takes quite a bit of time and investment, so, you know, it's cool to see him in the MVP vote again.
Chen Xiao's gonna run out of accolades at this point. His virtual mantelpiece is becoming full.
Yeah.
He's like a cabinet.
Very true. Very true. If there was one ranged assassin that I could draft into almost any of my fantasy teams, it would be him. I would actually rate him higher in terms of mechanical skill than some of the Korean ones. So, definitely up there.
Good call. He is very strong. Like, he's definitely, since the departure of Xing Si,